So, as we all know, many people are leaving Canada, or if not leaving, have many things that they can't come to terms with while being in Canada. In this short video, we will go over a few of the reasons that people cannot call Canada their home anymore. So I was going over the comments section of a popular video on this topic, and one comment particularly got my attention. I'd like to share that with you, and then I'll share my insights and opinion on that comment in the rest of the video. So the comment goes like, my daughter is nearing the end of 2 great years in Canada on a backpacker visa from Australia. She's loved the people, the landscape, mostly lived in British Columbia and Alberta, and working there. She picked up interesting jobs, worked very hard, just about made ends meet. Has been great overall. So she's even offered a permanent job by a major Canadian company last year. She was working for them on a 1 year role at that time. That would have paved the way for her to apply for PR. But she turned it down without a second thought for all the reasons you would know about. And then in the rest of the comment, she unfolds the reasons why her daughter turned down that job offer that could have paved her way to the permanent residency in Canada. And the reasons stand as wages aren't great, maybe 20% less than Australia, okay? Australian dollars weaker in value as compared to Canadian, but the salaries generally in Australia are a bit better than here in Canada. So that's one reason. So the second reason is taxes are high, including having to pay CPP. In Australia, the employer pays all pension contributions on top of wages. Now, here in Canada, people are given the option of whether they want to contribute towards the retirement savings plan or not, or they just want to take their whole salary upfront or as they go. But if they do decide to contribute toward the RRSP, it's then that the employer also matches their contribution, and there are also terms and conditions to follow for that. So yes, this is a thing in Canada that people have to contribute towards their RRSP, whereas in Australia, the employer pays all pension contributions on top of wages, as she says. Then the next thing is groceries prices out of kilter. That's totally right. Rents consume most of what's left. That's also true. And even if you could save a deposit for a house or shoebox apartment, what's the point? Could never afford it. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, there's two ways to go about this thing. One way is to pay your rent to a family that in turn pays its own mortgage. And in the alter scenario that you buy a house, you basically pay the rent to the government and the banks. So everybody's basically paying rent. It's just translated differently between the renters and home buyers. Home buyers eventually, like, if they stay in one spot for at least 10 years, that is when they can build a bit of equity, and that also depends upon whether the house prices go up or down, because the housing market is also following a cycle. There's a bubble, then there's a burst, then there's a boom, there's a bubble, there's a burst. So there's a pattern. So not everybody is able to benefit from the appreciation in home prices. Some people also have to pay from pocket even after having bought home for 10 or so years. So yes, to each their own. Different people match different fates in this realm. So I totally understand the frustration that goes on here, that house is one thing in Canada that everybody just keeps chasing and chasing and chasing all lifelong. Even those people who claim to have multiple properties in Canada, in most of the cases, or more often than not, they are paying the mortgage and do not have even a single property fully paid off. So that is kind of a situation here in Canada. And then she further says, she says about her daughter. She says, Her daughter has seen nearly all her Canadian friends resign to their fate of being perennial renters, of being perpetually skint. It's no life. She's sad to see it, coming from a country of perpetual optimism and opportunity, to learn over time how such a similar country isn't like that. That has somehow got it all so wrong. Yeah, I can totally understand. And especially if somebody's come from Australia and has seen low taxes, high wages, or even from the US, people tend to see the effect even more. If you are thinking of Australia as your answer, it'd be a fair call. Avoid Sydney if you can, a less expensive Vancouver. She's calling Sydney a less expensive Vancouver, but rest of the place is workable. Average wage in Perth is $100,000, which equates to almost Canadian 90,000. And average house, full size, not an apartment or townhouse, price is about $700,000, Canadian $630,000. So it's doable considering the salaries are a little higher than in Canada, if tight to start with for youngsters like you. Yeah, youngsters might still find it difficult to afford a home in Australia, but as people go by and delve deeper into their careers and walk their way upwards, it gets a little more approachable for them to get into this home deal. So she says she's been to Vancouver's East Hastings Street and so can confirm is nowhere close to that in Oz. Are sketchy parts of the old cities, but it's definitely not community wide. Are small pockets of homelessness, especially but not only indigenous community, but the governments are mostly sort of own it. Sun, sea, sand, and the sharks rarely come close to the shore. Yeah, that's all natural beauty, but we've got enough of that here in Canada as well. We can't complain about lack of natural beauty in Canada. In Canada has, I think, one of the most pristine forms of nature to offer. But other than that, when it comes to the accommodation, especially the home buying thing, it's very, 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 very frustrating. Having lived in Canada for almost 2 years, I've come to the conclusion that it's an ongoing thing with not only with renters but also with home buyers. In fact, more so with home buyers than renters because they have to keep up with this deal that they enter for a good at least 20 to 30 years of their life based on how much down payment were they able to afford or put down to begin with. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to whether they were able to make some profit out of it, whether they were able to pocket any money or not. And that again depends upon how the housing market cycle has been at the time that they got into this deal, this thing of home buying. But yes, it's very, very frustrating to begin with. There are a lot of criteria that you have to meet in order to be able to be offered a mortgage by a financial institution or a bank. And then I don't believe one person's salary can be anywhere close to enough to be able to get their family a mortgage from a bank. uh, at the very least, both partners have to work, and yes, they have to work their asses off to bring some money and be able to contribute toward mortgage payment, and then afford the groceries and utility bills and gas and everything. So at the end of the day, it's very limited or minimal or absolutely no savings, even for the home buyers. And God forbid if they are caught into any kind of accident or any uncalled for expenses, that's the time that they find themselves in real trouble and hot waters, and then they seek the help of all these financial institutions, or tend to get their mortgage period extended even further. So to begin with, if it was the home was financed for like 25 years of payment, it could be extended to 30, 35, or God knows what. So it's an ongoing thing, and it never stops. Many people do not have their homes paid off after trying to pay month by month all their life. and the rent and the balance simply boils down to their heirs or their children when they're gone. So it's a constant cycle of debt that people get into, and the only way to cope with the situation is kind of trying to make your peace with paying rent, or to be in a state of constant suspicion and doubting your own decision of buying a home. That's an unfortunate reality of Canada. I don't know if it has always been like this. I think from what I have collected from people who have shared their experiences of buying their homes earlier in Canada, they say back in the day people used to get real value for money. Homes used to be cheaper, interest rate used to be lower, and overall people would get much better homes for the same price that they are able to get now these days. So like we are talking paying $600,000 or even more so for just a townhouse, not even a detached house. A good decent detached house, you could say, goes upwards of $1 million. So overall it's a very unfortunate situation, and I think newcomers in Canada might never be in a position of buying homes, especially those that have recently come or are yet to come. That's my wrap up of the situation of trying to clarify why many people cannot come to terms with the situation in Canada. Do share your experiences and insights and let me know in the comments below what you think, whether home buying is something that new people should consider doing in Canada, or it's better to rent. I'd be interested to hear your comments and respond accordingly. Subscribe to Pakistani Immigrant Family in Canada YouTube channel. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and have a nice day, and bye.